So, I wasn't exactly planning for a home invasion that night. You know, the kind where the invader is your own roommate, rifling through your stuff like it's a late-night treasure hunt. There I was, half asleep, yawning my way through scrolling on my phone, when a sudden shift in the living room caught my eye. I wasn't expecting anyone to be up, much less poking around behind my desk. At first, I thought maybe my cat had knocked something over again, or, I don't know, someone had snuck in because they lost their keys. But nope. There was Jamie, my new roommate, standing there with this nervy, awkward stance, fingers actually rifling through the little pile of mail and notebooks I keep where I land every day. I froze, heart thumping oddly fast. It was like that moment when you walk into a room and spot someone wearing your hoodie, except this was way creepier. Jamie noticed me, blinked, and jumped like I'd caught him red-handed, which, well, I had. Hey. Didn't mean to wake you, he said, pulling his hand away as if the mail itself was some hot potato. His eyes darted a bit too quickly across the scattered papers. I just stood there trying to piece together what the heck was happening. Why on earth would Jamie be digging through my stuff? And this part was way worse. What exactly had he found? I wanted to say something clever or at least demand an explanation, but my brain went blank. It was all disbelief and a dash of that panic-prickling feeling you get when you suddenly realize maybe you don't know your new roommate as well as you thought. Jamie shuffled awkwardly, then straightened and mumbled, I was just, looking for the router password. Nee, I squinted. The router password? Jamie, it's on the sticky note right there, on the router. Oh. He scratched his neck like he'd just told a terrible lie. Must have missed it. I wasn't buying it, but what else could I do, right? I backed away, telling myself this was probably one weird night, a random lapse in judgment or whatever. Still, the question lingered. Why? Why go through my things like that in the middle of the night, like some low-budget detective on a stakeout? I figured maybe I'd confront him tomorrow in daylight, share some coffee-fueled interrogation, but honestly, I was already bracing myself for the weirdness that living with Jamie might bring. Yeah, this was gonna be something. Jamie moved in about 2 months before that midnight mail raid incident. I found him through one of those roommate finder apps, swipe left on creepy, right on near acceptable. Jamie seemed clean-cut enough in his profile picture. Neat hair, a polite smile, the usual I keep my space tidy, I don't throw loud parties spiel. At first, sharing the apartment was, well, rather uneventful. We had the typical roommate dance, polite hellos around the kitchen, the occasional nod in the hallway, and those vague conversations that never quite get past the weather or how the city traffic was messing up your commute. I wouldn't exactly say we were buddies, but it was comfortable enough, which I guess is the dream when you rent out a room in a place you call home. The apartment itself was small, like more shelves than walkable space, small. Jamie's room was right across from mine, and we shared the kitchen and living room. Nothing fancy, standard big city, rented in haste kind of spot. The kind of place where you're always just one coffee away from questioning your life choices, and where you learn that your roommate's odd habits could either be charming quirks or early warning signs. Speaking of which, Jamie did have some odd behaviors that, looking back, should have set off more alarms from the beginning. Like the way he'd suddenly disappear when I brought up weekend plans, or how sometimes I'd find my textbook shifted an inch or two on my desk, as if someone was eyeballing them but didn't quite know what to do next. He'd leave the bathroom light on for hours. Like, not just forgotten the light, but eerily persistent, as if the switch was stuck in some haunted position. And then there was the almost surgical precision with which he cleaned the kitchen counters but never touched his own dishes till they built up into some dubious science experiment. I chalked a lot of it up to living alone too long before meeting Jamie. Or maybe he was just a bit socially awkward and his habits were just his way of handling the shared space. Still, it creeped me out a little more than I cared to admit. Then, over the past few weeks, I started noticing subtle changes. My favorite mug blue ceramic, chipped just on the rim, a birthday gift from my sister, went missing. At first, I figured I just forgot where I put it, or maybe it slipped behind the dishwasher. But then a couple of cookbooks I swear I left stacked on my desk were now tucked away on a shelf in the living room. Even the charger cable that I always keep hooked right behind the TV turned up a day unplugged beneath Jamie's chair. Those little things piled up, and suddenly my apartment felt less like mine and more like a puzzle I needed to solve. One night, I caught Jamie glancing at me in a way that wasn't quite friendly, more like he was trying to see if I knew something without actually letting me in on what that something was. I tried to play cool, but it felt like we were orbiting this invisible tension field, neither of us brave enough or maybe willing to cross it. At a casual dinner one evening, I asked, "So, Jamie, what exactly do you do?" "You never really mentioned much about work or hobbies." He shrugged, avoiding eye contact. "Just things, stuff, the usual grind." That vague answer raised more questions than it answered. It was like Jamie was either purposely vague or just not comfortable opening up. I decided not to push. Probably best to keep the peace, I thought. But the nagging curiosity mixed with a growing unease wasn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, our little shared routine started to feel increasingly like an episode of a reality show I hadn't signed up for. I found myself double-checking my locked drawer every time I left the apartment. I caught myself moving my notebooks from the desk to the bookshelf and back, hoping to figure out if Jamie was sneaking another glance when I wasn't looking. And then there was the weirdest thing. Jamie would ask me random questions about my schedule almost too casually. Like, hey, are you going to be home on Friday night? Or, you working late tomorrow or what? It wasn't about making plans, but more this probing, strange curiosity that made me raise an eyebrow. The whole setup was becoming this strange game of cat and mouse that I didn't ask to play. And yeah, I did mention Emily to myself a couple times, my closest friend and unofficial therapist through all my life's awkward moments. I knew if I was starting to feel this suspicious about someone, she'd be the one to dissect the whole situation with me over a couple of cups of terrible coffee. But for now, I was stuck in the apartment tiptoeing around my own space while silently wondering, was I losing my mind? Or was Jamie just complicated or something else? Whatever it was, the missing mug and the midnight mail raid were just the surface, and something beneath it all was waiting to float up. So, after that awkward midnight mail episode, I realized subtlety was my new best friend, mostly because diving straight into confrontation seemed like a bad idea. I tried small, almost laughable tactics to catch Jamie in the act if he was truly snooping. For instance, I strategically left a notebook open on my desk with a really embarrassing doodle right in the middle kid-level stick figures having a tea party. Nothing too scandalous, but definitely cringeworthy. If Jamie touched it, maybe I'd get a reaction, or at least some evidence. Next morning, I found the notebook closed and the doodle still there, untouched. So, either Jamie respected my weird art or he hadn't been near the desk overnight. Encouraged by zero progress, I tried planting this really obvious secret sticky note on my computer screen that said, "Top secret project, do not touch." It was pure desperation, honestly. Later that week, I came home early from work and found Jamie casually sorting my mail on the kitchen table, the same mail he'd once rifled through at 2 in the morning. His head snapped up like he was caught mid-heist, but then he just gave me this cryptic smile, more puzzling than guilty. "Just making sure nothing important got lost," he said, as if that made total sense. That's when things started feeling weird, like I was missing a piece of the puzzle, or maybe Jamie had a map I didn't know about. His reactions made my brain loop through every possible explanation. Defensive? Yes. Calm? Sometimes unsettlingly so. It was hard to tell if he was messing with me or trying to test my patience. I finally caved and texted Emily, the one person I knew would help me untangle this mess without rolling her eyes. I shared everything: midnight mail raids, missing mug, Jamie's cryptic vibes. She was, predictably, not thrilled, but offered a plan that was equal parts cunning and ridiculous. "Set a trap," she said. "Leave something tempting, but totally fake. If Jamie takes the bait, confrontation hard and fast." Emily's idea was to slip in a fake letter addressed to me, pretending it was some secret government thing or a mysterious inheritance, something absurd enough to make Jamie reveal what he wanted, or at least admit his motive. Before I could execute Emily's trap, I decided to dig a little more on Jamie in the usual modern way, a quick social media and news hunt. Here's where the plot twist sneaked in. Jamie wasn't as obscure as I'd thought. A few online articles popped up. Not just profiles, but an incident from a few years back that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Apparently, Jamie had been involved in some kind of whistleblower case at his last job, and the details were, well, let's say complicated enough to explain a lot about his secretiveness. The articles hinted at fear, paranoia, and running, not just from people, but maybe from his own past. I stared at the screen, feeling the ground shift under my feet. This wasn't just about a roommate peeking through my mail anymore. It was like living with a real-life mystery novel character, except I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the co-star or the unsuspecting victim. When Jamie came home that night, I had questions ready, but also this weird mix of sympathy and suspicion swirling inside me. I mean, what did you even say to someone who seemed to be battling invisible storms while politely cleaning the kitchen and occasionally poking through your stuff? I knew I had to confront all this soon, either to get answers or admit that my apartment had turned into a shelter for mysteries way bigger than my missing mug or late-night curiosity. Either way, I was about to find out if Jamie was the plot twist or just a really complicated side character. And somehow, I had a feeling this was only the beginning. So, the night of the confrontation finally rolled around, and let me tell you, I wasn't exactly looking forward to it. I paced around the living room like it was some kind of stage, rehearsing lines that sounded way too serious for a conversation about weird roommate behavior. When Jamie walked in, I took a deep breath, trying to balance between sounding casual and actually getting to the point without sounding like a total psycho. "I think we need to talk," I blurted out, surprising even myself with how straightforward that was. Jamie paused by his room, eyebrows raised but his voice as calm as ever. "We do?" I nodded, gesturing vaguely at the kitchen table where all those small episodes seemed to have piled up into this giant invisible wall. Look, I've noticed some stuff. My mail going through, some things moving around, and honestly, it's been bugging me. There was this flicker in Jamie's eyes, something like regret mixed with resignation that I didn't expect. He sat down, taking a moment like he was weighing how much to share. Okay, yes, he said quietly. I was going through your stuff, but it's not what you think. Naturally, my mind went straight to all sorts of directions that weren't helpful. Then what is it? Jamie rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my gaze for a moment. I'm not just hiding some weird quirks or social anxiety, he began. I'm running from something. Not from you, I swear, but from people who want to find me. Sometimes I check your mail because I'm paranoid looking for anything that might clue me in on whether they're close. And the stuff moving around? I'm trying to keep the apartment secure in a way. For a second, I was caught between thinking, is this some elaborate prank? And wow, okay, this got way heavier than missing mugs. Jamie continued. I was a whistleblower at my last job. I exposed some big corruption, and it didn't sit well with some powerful people. I thought I could disappear or keep a low profile here, but sometimes old habits die hard. I'm sorry for freaking you out. His honesty threw me off balance. Here I was, worried about petty stuff, and Jamie's dealing with something that sounded straight out of a thriller novel. It was honestly a lot to process all at once. I laughed nervously. Well, when you put it like that, my mug might as well be a national treasure. He cracked a small smile, this relief visibly melting some tension. I'm sorry about that too. Guess I got a bit too hands-on. And in that moment, somehow, the strange tension in the apartment shifted. We weren't just two people sharing space anymore, we were two people trying to figure out how to share trust. I asked him more about the situation, and he shared enough for me to understand that living with me, seeing me go through my normal life, helped ground him a little. He wasn't just dodging danger, he was trying to reclaim some normalcy. Still, I wasn't sure if I was completely relieved or just more confused about what this all meant for our cohabitation. Privacy suddenly felt more complicated when fear and survival were in play, and trust wasn't just a nice-to-have but a lifeline. We agreed on ground rules moving forward. No snooping, clear boundaries, and slightly more honest conversations, plus a mutual agreement to not turn the apartment into a spy zone. Jamie even offered to replace the missing mug, which felt like a small but significant peace offering. After all this, I can't say I have the perfect answer about privacy when you live with strangers who turn out to be way more than you bargained for. What I do know? Sometimes you discover the stories people carry with them aren't the ones they wear on their sleeves but tucked away in the shadows, and sometimes all you need is a little courage to bring those stories into the light. So yeah, what would you do if your roommate's secrets were bigger than your space? How much would you give up or try to understand before you decide whether sharing an apartment means sharing everything?